We return now to our top story, the ongoing student protests in Serbia. Demonstrations have been taking place since that deadly collapse of a train station canopy in the northern city of Novi Sad in November. The almost daily anti-government protests have even prompted the Prime Minister to quit in a bid to ease tensions. Here to break down all the latest developments is Vujo Ilić, Research Fellow at the University of Belgrade. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
A pleasure to have you with us. Can I start with the significance of these protests? Is it fair to say that this is the biggest public opposition President Vučić has faced since taking power more than a decade ago?
Without any doubt, this is the most significant challenge to Vučić's rule. There is a quantitative and qualitative difference to what has been going on. First of all, in December, there was a mass protest that included around 100,000 people in Belgrade, which is the largest demonstration we've had in decades, or maybe ever. And the other thing that happened is that student organization is very different from anything that we've had before. The students have organized blockades in the faculties. They are organized based on democratic principle of direct democracy. And they are not associated with any other political actors or even formal or informal civil society organizations, which makes it very, very difficult for President Vučić to discredit or co-opt them, which wasn't the case with the previous protests.
Much of these demonstrations have centred around both the tragedy in Novi Sad and that alleged state corruption. Is Serbia corrupt?
There is a lot of corruption in Serbia, that's true. However, what these protests are focused on is the accountability of elected officials. When the canopy in Novi Sad fell, this opened questions of not only how good are these constructions works. Serbia has experienced an explosion of construction in constructing industry in the last 5 or so years, and the whole question of how well have these been constructed is paired with the question of how much did these projects cost. Most of these contracts are made through interstate agreements. This particular is with Chinese companies, which means that usually they are non-transparent. So as you can imagine, this opened all kinds of questions about where is the money going to and what are the citizens actually getting for their money.
And we've already seen that Prime Minister Vučić has quit to try and bring down the temperature. Did that have any impact?
At the moment, I would say did not have much impact. The students are very specific about their demands, and they are. When you said these are anti-government protests, that's partially true. There is a demand from the government for accountability, but the students did not demand necessarily all these resignations and so on. They demanded accountability, and they're also demanding criminal responsibility for what happened in Novi Sad, as well as transparency in the money flows and the construction documents, which means that it takes time for these demands to be fulfilled. Right now, what we are all wondering is, how will the students actually evaluate this? Legal procedures take time. We all understand this, and so it's a big question. How long can this movement maintain this momentum, knowing that the legal process can take weeks, months, or even years?
Do you expect to see more political change at the top, more resignations, even if it's not precisely what the students are calling for?
Actually, yes. Prime Minister resigned on Tuesday, and on Monday, the President Vučić announced government reshuffle. So even though this resignation of Prime Minister was sudden, we all expected that there would be a major reshuffle of the government, and the President Vučić was announcing 50% of the cabinet would be replaced. What could be expected is that more ministers would form this government outside of the ruling Serbian Progressive Party, which means that we could look ahead for some sort of expert-run government, similar to the previous Prime Minister, Ana Brnabić, who became a prime minister in 2017 and to 2019, she wasn't a member of the ruling party. We might actually expect something like that to happen again.
When it comes to President Vučić, do you think he realised how problematic this disaster would be for him and his government? Do you feel like he was a bit complacent about this disaster?
I think that that the reaction caught Vučić by surprise. We can see this because in the beginning, the government was trying to first ignore or downplay what happened, saying that there is no responsibility. Things like this simply happen. And secondly, the old repertoire of either carrots or sticks was employed. There were people that were organized by the ruling party who were trying to break the demonstrations. And on the other hand, President Vučić tried to co-opt the youth by offering them very cheap credits for housing. And you could see that there were a lot of different attempts to de-escalate the situation, to either co-opt or confront these students who were demonstrating, but also. The government is really good at waiting things out. It has more resources, it has more power. And in all the previous demonstrations like this, and in Serbia, we have this almost every year, government would wait out. And this did not play so well. As a matter of fact, most of the things that were attempted were counterproductive, and they actually instilled even more opposition. So I would say Vučić was caught by surprise. And 3 months later, we are still in a crisis that is even deeper than what we all anticipated.
Now, Brussels has been largely quiet about what's happening on the ground, certainly not speaking with a united voice. Could or should the EU step in? Why do you think the EU has been so mum on this?
Well, I would start by saying that the usual way that the government is dealing whenever it's challenged domestically is to say that all of these domestic upheavals are somehow manipulated from the outside, blaming the West and so on. This is the general narrative that we see all the time. But what's really surprising about the situation now is that there is no external support for this social movement organized by the students, and Serbia is in a strange situation that both Russian and the U.S. Officials have more directly or indirectly condemned what has been going on. They are not on the side of the students, and they are supporting the government. When it comes to the EU, there was a lot of support coming from different political groupings. But you're right, the Commission or the Parliament itself, there was no direct support or condemnation. The EU has been silent. I would say that the EU is trying to pull Vučić towards the West. This has been the case, especially in the last year or two, and that right now Vučić is more valuable to them for various geopolitical reasons than they actually care about what is going on with civil rights and democracy in the country.
Vujo Ilić, Research Fellow at the University of Belgrade, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
And that's all for World News tonight. Do stay with us here on TVP World. I'm Aaron Dahmen. Good night.